Okay. Okay, they're beginning to record because I can see myself up there. Welcome, everyone. Citizens for Responsible Government is a young organization. We started a few years ago with a couple of Democrats and a couple of Republicans. We have grown in both numbers and contributions since then. We are focused on short-term and long-term good governance improvements on the local level, which includes those representing us in Salem, and that's who we're going to have all talking to us today. Longer term involves education and improvement of our county's charter, our constitution, so to speak. Shorter term is bringing to light the backgrounds and the intentions of candidates for office. That's what tonight is all about. We believe local government is to serve the needs and interests of the entire community through establishing best practices of good governance. Good governance is rooted in honesty, integrity, accessibility, inclusiveness, and transparency, equity, diversity, competence, and accountability. Responsible government leadership relies on factual information and reason, practices ethical behavior, and respects the rule of law. CRG does not recommend who you should vote for. We try to shed a light on the candidates for you to make the best decision. That's what tonight is all about. Unfortunately, several candidates have refused to attend, despite the fact that they were invited months ago, and some had originally agreed and then backed out for some reason. With that, let's get your questions answered. Write them on the cards and we will put them in the mix. We start with the candidates for the city of Grants Pass. Then we will move to state house representatives and senators, with closing with the commissioners. This event is being recorded and will be available on YouTube channel in a few days. Just to let you know, next month we will be doing something similar for Cave Junction. So instead of City of Grants Pass, we're going to have the City of Cave Junction. And I thank you all for coming, and I think we can get going with the city councilors and mayor.
Is this on? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm Larry West. I'm going to be your moderator tonight. It's wonderful that we had this turnout. It's far beyond my expectations. Can I have that mic? Can you hear me now? Okay. I like to look at faces, so it's wonderful you're here. It's a great turnout. This is very, very good. It tells us, it shows us, look at our participation. We have quite a few people. All of our three things we're talking about, the city, the state, and the county. These are big things. We're not going to get into the federal government and solve those problems tonight. I think we'll hear something about the state and how we may solve some problems, and that's why you're here too. Big focus will be on the city and the county, and that's what a lot of visibility is here. That's what a lot of problems are. These candidates have three things and only three things when they want to run for office. They have to have money, they have to have issues, and time. Now, right now, time's running out. And so it's actually so nice to see you here because that's the one thing you can't replace. So thanks for showing up. We'll do our best to get to the questions. And we have a lot of them. I have not read all of them. They're going to be not me writing these or CRG writing all of them. But this is really the public and what they're speaking, and they're asking these questions. With that, I'm going to start addressing our city candidates. I want to start with each candidate. You have a minute and a half to tell us what you're all about and why we should vote for you. Let's start with Bristol.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. My name is Sara Bristol. I'm currently the mayor of Grants Pass, and I'm running for re-election for a second term. I am a Grants Pass native, and I grew up here, graduated from Grants Pass High in 1994. And I was a leadership student back in the day, so I'm excited to see some young students here. My very first participation here in the city of Grants Pass, I had a job working for the Stream Ranger program when I was about 14 years old, and then at some point in high school I served on the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee that they had back in the day with Candace Bartow was the mayor. So this is something that's always been really important to me. As an adult, I became a newspaper journalist, was my career ambition, and I did work for newspapers for a number of years. I currently work at the marketing department at Road Community College. I served on the Yakima City Council for a couple years when I lived in Yakima, Washington, and then my family moved back here in late 2013, so about 10 years ago. 11 years ago, and after a few years of living back here in Grants Pass, I decided I wanted to get involved again. So I joined the city's tourism advisory committee, and after a couple years, I ran for mayor. I think a lot of the interests of CRG align with mine. I do believe in good governance involving honesty, integrity, transparency. I don't consider myself a particularly political person, but I'm all about doing what's best for our community here in Grants Pass. Thanks for having me.
Let's go to Vanessa and tell us something about yourself. Why should we vote for you?
Thank you. Thank you, the organizers, to CRG for organizing this event, and thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. I think it's very important that people listen and learn about their local candidates. My name is Vanessa Ogier. I am the current Grants Pass City Council president, and I am nearing the end of my first term in this seat. My day job is I am a police dispatcher for the Oregon State Police. And I originally got into this position because I felt as though our local government was not necessarily representative of the issues that our community faced, and one of those is housing. Housing was not prioritized to the level that it was needed, and that's really something that I'm proud of in the last 4 years that this council has been able to change, is the momentum on development of housing for our community, and that is all types of housing. We have helped to incentivize market rate housing down to affordable housing. Secondly, as a public safety professional, I understand both sides of the coin of the demands that are placed on police, fire, and dispatchers, and also the protection against massive tax hikes for funding those services, which is something that requires a delicate balance. And lastly, I think it's important that we have candidates in local office that are transparent, that are honest, and that are willing to communicate on the issues and be present for those that would like to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian DeLaGrange.
Thank you. My name is Brian DeLaGrange. I am a current city councilor just finishing up my first term. I was born and raised in Grants Pass, graduated from Grants Pass High School, attended the U.S. Air Force Academy, graduated from University of Oregon, and I currently work as an energy consultant for an electric company in California that serves my client bases, universities, and K-12 school districts. So that's my day job. I got into city council because I saw a lot of bad decisions being made 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I knew that we needed a shift here in housing, with homeless, with just budgetary decisions in general. So I was elected, took office. We inherited a $2 million budget shortfall from the previous council. We rectified that pretty quickly. We've been making gains on the housing issue, and we have several big projects in the pipeline now that the city has helped to spur. So the momentum is changing on housing. And obviously, as most people know, the homeless are now out of the parks. There's a lot of work still to do on that issue, but that is also moving in the right direction. So I'm hoping that I can continue to work on these issues for the community. I think we've been making progress, and I think that 4 more years will allow us to make even more progress. Thank you.
Jay Meredith.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for hosting this event tonight. My name is Jay Meredith, and I've lived in Grants Pass for 18 years now. I moved my small business here 18 years ago, and one thing led to another, and I ended up coming to work for the city of Grants Pass in 2008. And then one thing led to another again, and in 2010, I became the city's finance director. I served in that role from 2010 through 2020. When I voluntarily stepped out to go back to the private sector. So I have really I've worked about half of my professional career as a CPA in the private sector and about half in government now, and that half in government was entirely for the city of Grants Pass. So city of Grants Pass budget, I fortunately or unfortunately know it like the back of my hand, and I think I've got a really good base of experience working with all of the city departments to help advise the council on how to make decisions and where we should go and the most cost-effective way to get to where we all want to go. So I have, for a long time in my spare time, been a huge public safety, police, and fire advocate, and I've spent a lot of my personal time, and I continue to spend a lot of my personal time advocating for public safety in Grants Pass and Josephine County, and so my service on the council would just continue that advocacy. Thanks.
All right. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. Everybody has 90 seconds, and that comes up fast. But when you see the yellow light, step on the gas. Don't cut yourself short. So let's try this. These are questions coming to us. We're just conveying them on to you. And I'm going to start with Bristol, and then the next time I ask a question, it will go to Vanessa, and we'll shift all the way down so that nobody has a lot more think time than the next person to these questions. So Bristol, how will you communicate with your specific representative area?
Well, the mayor represents the entire city of Grants Pass, not a particular ward. I think I have a track record of responding to media. I have spoken to a lot of media nationwide because of our Supreme Court case over the past year, but I always try, if I'm able to make myself available to media because that's a way to communicate with a lot of people in one shot. I am active on social media. I get a number of emails and phone calls. I give out my personal cell phone freely, and I try to respond to as many people as possible. I know that there are a lot of people out there who are going to say she didn't respond, and that's true. I can't respond to everyone all the time. Sometimes we get quite a bit of email, especially, and but, I try to stay in touch with people as much as possible and just let people know what's going on. And I would hope that the community would avail themselves of the media resources available to them. People are able to watch our meetings on YouTube and read the news, watch the news on TV, and stay informed about their local community as much as possible. I can't talk to each person one-on-one, but I do try to talk to as many people as possible.
Great, thank you. Vanessa, same question. How will you communicate with your specific ward area?
Thank you. Myself personally, try to respond to every email that we receive. I know Mayor Bristol highlighted it well that we do receive a lot of inquiry. It's also important to make our positions clear in the meetings. We have weekly workshops and we have Wednesday business meetings, making your position clear so that people can go onto YouTube and the city's website and learn there. In a larger picture, the council has voted in the past to conduct citywide surveys on specific issues to learn more from the community. We have had town hall forums, and we've had listening and learning sessions, and this gives us the ability to hear not only from our own wards, but from the entire constituency of the city.
Thank you. Brian, DeLaGrange.
Yeah, thank you. So there's some similarities between what was already said and what I would say. My personal cell is available on the city website, so literally anybody can call me, anybody can email me, and we do get a lot of email. And I do read them all, but I will tell you I don't respond to them all. If I responded to them all, I would probably have to go from full-time to part-time at my current job. So I do read them all, and there's a lot that comes through to us. If you've been at our city council meetings during public comment, I'm always sitting over here taking notes and listening intently to what the people at the podium have to say. So I'm always paying attention when there's citizens making comment, and I'm making notes, and often I have responses to their comments to try to engage with them. So that's probably about as a single dad and a full-time parent and a counselor, my time is a little bit limited, so I don't get back to everybody, and I'm just going to be honest on that. But if it is important and you're persistent, or you come to our meetings, I do hear you out.
Jay Meredith.
Yeah, so the city council is elected by ward, but we really serve the entire city. I've lived or worked in all 4 wards of the city. I feel like I know the city pretty well. I feel like I know, I've met a lot of people through my time working with the city and in various nonprofit and other activities. I feel like I've got to know quite a few people in Grants Pass and got a pretty good pulse on how people feel about issues. I will go out of my way to respond to as many of the emails that the city council gets as possible. I will always try to meet with people to talk face to face, because that's anytime you get a complicated issue, that's important. In fact, after the council meeting last night, I met with somebody for probably almost an hour to talk about city and other things. So yeah, so I actually enjoy solving problems, and so and I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I'll probably be, if elected, I'll probably get very little sleep, but I'll answer quite a few emails.
Thank you. This one we'll start with Vanessa, and we'll continue to shift. Vanessa, how important is finding additional funding to meet the escalating cost of replacing Grants Pass aging water plant? What measures can be taken to get the water purification plant completed?
It's extraordinarily important. Water sustains human life. We all know that. That goes without saying. Our current plant that we're operating out of was constructed in 1931, so the time for rebuild is long overdue. Unfortunately, before I came on board, the city did not put aside money for this capital project, and it is the largest capital project in our city's history. This means that this has to come from the ratepayers. Our federal government, unfortunately, does not invest in communities like it used to. Long before I was even born, these types of projects were paid for by the federal government, so now it is up to our community to do that. And that began, I believe, that rate structure began early in 2013 to determine how much would have to come from the water payers to pay for that. We know that the costs are escalating. That's certainly not something that I'm proud of. A portion of that can really be attributed to the cost of raw goods, inflation, and what some would even call greedflation, an artificial inflation of goods. And so some of that is out of our hands, but we have taken cost controlling measures, and we have toned down the project from what it was originally conceptualized from.
Okay, Brian DeLaGrange, same question.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a sore subject for me. When I first got on council, we still had a little bit of time to potentially look at different options for the water treatment plant, including doing a full renovation of the existing plant, which would have cost about half of building a new plant. And so I was really pushing hard to explore that option, but unfortunately there wasn't enough support on council to follow through with that. So we're on this other path where we're building a new plant, and this new plant will serve the community for 50, 60 years. So that's good. However, from when I took office to now, The costs have gone up about 50%. I think it was maybe around 80 million when we took office, and now it's like 120 or more. And it's hard as one counselor to address that. And it feels like that, honestly, we're kind of a little bit being held hostage because we need a new water plant, and no matter what it costs, we're going to need it. So we have applied for a federal BRIC grant for $50 million. Staff, I think this is our third attempt at this, and every time we get a little bit closer. So I think there's a good chance that we're going to get that this time, and that we're not going to have to increase the water rates. And if we don't get it, I would encourage us to apply again so we don't have to increase the water rates, because the water bill is already pretty out of control.
Jay Meredith.
So this is actually one very challenging project over the years, but this is one area where I think the city has a lot to be proud of, because in the last staff report from Public Works on this major project, what I believe they said was that we're on track to receive this big federal infrastructure grant or federal infrastructure financing program, which is at really good rate terms. They said a couple of really important things. They said, if we do get this, it looks like we won't have to adjust water rates any further than we've already adjusted them. And the project will be, as long as the estimates are on track, the project will be completed without having to do a bond offering, without having to, go out and raise debt for this project. So I think if that does come to pass, I think that we should really celebrate that, because that's for being the biggest capital project in the city's history that the city has done by itself, and not doing a bond issue and finding creative ways to finance that project, and not have to do another rate change, hopefully. I think if that comes to pass, we have a lot to celebrate. And I was actually really proud of the city's last report on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want me to answer, Larry?
Yes.
All
Sara.
right. So we are anticipating receiving that BRIC grant. We haven't received the final approval yet, but we are on track to receive it, and that will pay a substantial amount of the cost where the cost has gone up over the years. One thing that's kind of interesting to know about it is that it does add a bit to the cost as well, because in order to spend the federal money on the water treatment plant, there's some additional requirements, and so it adds a bit to the cost, but it offers us much more in return. So we do anticipate being able to break ground on that project next year, sometime spring or summer. We don't have an exact date yet, assuming that the financing goes through. I think it is critical to the community. We have some earthquake issues, concerns about the current water treatment plant. We only have one water treatment plant in town, and so we do want to take care of this problem before construction costs go any higher, or before we have some sort of devastating event in the community. We'll be real sorry that we didn't plan ahead. So I think we do need to move forward on it. The city has laid the groundwork for being able to pay for it. Unfortunately, you are seeing that on your water bill, and it's one of the things that makes our water bill a bit higher. But it is important that we take this step for our community's safety and security. Water is essential to life and everything we do. Just so you know, we do have 2 water trucks that are capable of pumping and cleaning water in an emergency, so hopefully we won't have to use those.
Thank you. For the public interest, there's only 4 sources of money you can get. You can tax it, you can fee it, you can bond it, you can apply for a grant. And what I'm hearing is you're all well aware of that. You're deeply entrenched in it. Let me go on to the next question. We'll start with Brian. What kind of housing is most needed in the city? More transitional housing, apartments, condos, basic single-family homes, or more subdivisions?
The easy answer is we need more of everything. However, the places where we're seeing the highest deficits are in categories that are not single-family housing. So transitional housing, condos, apartments, townhomes, the types of housing that are smaller and more affordable for people are building community, bless their hearts, they are really good at pumping out single-family homes and not so good at the other housing types. So in that particular category, we're doing okay. It's the other ones where we need help, and I don't know that our local building community has the capacity or the ability to fully take that on. So I think part of the city's role is to bring in and hopefully get some outside builders from either from Medford or from up north or from wherever that can has a little bit more expertise in these other housing types that are on average more affordable for the community. So we've been working on that. We've had a few different requests for proposal go out for these types of housing, and so the momentum is starting to go that way. We have a big housing project that's eventually going to come up here on Washington and Midland. We're in the process of buying a 4-acre lot of R4, which is high density, that we can potentially put 150 units on. So yes, thank you.
Jay.
Yeah, like Brian said, I actually agree. We need more of all levels of housing. So when you have a squeeze on any one type of housing or any one type of affordability level, it tends to squeeze the other categories too. So we really need more in all categories from all the data that I've seen. Obviously, there's plenty of need for affordable, or what I would prefer to call workforce housing. And I think the city's already started doing this, but I think we need to continue doing this. We need to support all of those groups that are doing some really great projects in the affordability arena, like home bridging, and even the Gospel Rescue Mission is building a senior project out there off of Williams Highway. We need to support all those programs that are doing housing in very creative ways, in ways that we haven't seen in a long time, we need to basically continue what we've been doing in the last couple of years and encourage all levels of housing, and definitely go out of our way to support. We have a couple of city-owned parcels, like the one that Brian mentioned. The city's in the process of purchasing, and there's also a really big one out on right off a little further out on Williams Highway. That's a big project that the city owns and is in process of making that available for housing as well. So the city has some land inventory that we are and should and need to continue promoting.
Okay, Bristol.
Yeah, I would agree. It's that housing, when we use the term affordable housing, to some people that triggers thoughts of low-income housing or something with actual income requirements, and to other people it just means housing that we can afford. And I think we need both of those, but especially in that area of housing that people can really afford, and that includes young people. I have 2 adult children who are just a couple years out of high school, and I would like them to someday be able to move out of my house and into their own apartment. I would like to be able to buy my own house, okay? So this is a very real situation, I think, for people in my generation. That was really the key to our grandparents' success, is that they were able to buy a house, and pay for it, and still be able to buy a car and food and send their kids to college and retire, right? And people my age are not looking at being able to do that, and it's a pretty important problem, I think, that we really need to address, and we need to address it here in this community. I'm aware of employers, from doctors to the college that I work for, that aren't able to recruit or retain new employees because those people can't afford to live in our community. We have a homeless camp right across the street here because those people can't afford to live in our community. So we need to get a variety of housing at all levels, but probably less impact on the single-family homes, at least kind of McMansions or larger homes that people are coming into our community from elsewhere and being able to buy without having to do the financing that those of us who are still working need to do. So I think middle housing, apartments, townhouses, smaller cottages, all of those things are really critical.
Thank you. Vanessa.
Thank you. To answer the question, we have a deficit in all kinds of housing. I know that's been stated, but specifically we have a deficit in low-income housing and market rate single-unit housing. And I'm really proud that this council has directly incentivized over 180 units of housing in the last 4 years. And with that, we've created a revolving housing loan fund that actually we just donated $500,000 to incentivize dozens of units of housing, and that was just a few weeks ago. So moving forward, we have a deficit of all types of housing. How do we solve this issue? We have a housing needs analysis that's been formally adopted, and we have a housing production strategy, both in which give us roadmaps on how to get there. So to help make sure that those come to fruition, it's super important that we not only team up with our local communities in the way that we have with the Home Builders Association, with the Housing Advisory Committee, and with local builders, but we also do what we can to incentivize the knowledge of outside communities of how to build that single unit market rate housing or how to financially leverage that low income affordable housing. I think that can be done by initiating our Urban Renewal Agency Housing Development Fund. We have $10 million currently in that fund to help initiate public and private partnerships to build market rate housing. And additionally, I think it's important that we take the advice of the Housing Advisory Committee to create some type of tax deferral program for multi-unit family housing. They've worked for other communities, and I'd like to see us bring it here. Thank you.
Okay, we're now at 6:30. We're running out of time. So we're going to dismiss the city. We're going to go to the state. And if we have any time at the end, we might start this up again for free-flowing questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next will be the state candidates. Mark Seligman.
You want to give your name tag? Can't go
Yes.
that way. Let's go this way.
We've only got...
And maybe, I think we would have time for closing statements if we wanted to.
I think especially with this group. There she is.
Look, I gotta go get it.
All right, shall we continue on? Pardon? Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh. Okay, now we will transition to the state with questions. And by the way, the city had a stack of questions this thick. We weren't able to get through those questions. The state has smaller, but the county has that many. So let's proceed. I'm going to start with Richard. I'm going to shift to Tracy and then to Mark. start over again. There's only 3, so we can probably get through a few more questions. Let me start with Richard. Push the red button.
Gotcha.
Okay. You have a minute and a half to tell us why we should vote for you and anything you can to sell us to help us vote for you. Go.
I'm Richard Chasm. I live a few miles out of Winston. I'm very well known in Douglas County, slightly known in Josephine County, and completely unknown in Jackson County. I'm running for the state legislature as a Democrat to represent the 4th House District. This district is bigger than Connecticut, and it stretches from Highway 42 in Camas Valley to Jacksonville. The one unifying feature of this district is it's very rural. The only incorporated cities in the district are Cangerville, Riddle, Glendale, Gold Hill, Rogue River, and the west half of Central Point. I'm a Democrat, but I've been fed up with how the state has been run by the Democrats from Portland for a long time. I'm very active in politics in Douglas County. I've been involved in a number of issues and things that have come down the pike. I got out of high school, had a chance. My father bought land out on Hoover Hill in 1958. I was going to college and working in the sawmill, and a neighbor offered me land, and I bought 35 acres when I was 23, bought out my folks, and I live on 66 acres of timberland that you can see, if you know where to look, from Highway 42. I'm a timber landowner. I've worked for many years in, is that the end? For many years in reforestation. I've planted 250,000 trees with these hands.
Time's up. And it does go fast. It does go fast. Tracy, tell us something about yourself for a minute and a half, and the big bell goes off.
And the big bell goes off. All right, I'm Tracy Thompson. I'm not a native of Grants Pass. I grew up actually in Palo Alto and moved here 6 years ago because my mother came here to retire. I'm a 40-year executive of healthcare in life and biotech. So I've run businesses around the world, and one of the things I learned about that is how to negotiate. And what triggered me to run for this office, I'm running for State Senate District 2, was when I read that Art Robinson voted against critical funding that would have supported water infrastructure in the supporting of 3,000 new homes in Grants Pass. And when I heard that, and I recognized the homelessness issue here, I said I can do better than that. My awareness of his son, Noah Robinson, is he's a just say no kind of person who is willing to be obstructive and walk out if necessary. And that's not how our government works. Our government works on debate and compromise, and that's how we move things forward. I've spent 40 years in solving problems, and I think that I can bring to this community enough solutions so that we can address some of these real heavy lifts that the City Council and the County Commissioners are addressing. So I came out of retirement for this, and if I don't win, I'm happy to go back in retirement.
Mark Seligman.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for showing up. My compliments to the people that are putting this on. We need more like this. I am a Democrat. I am a rare Democrat. I differ from my party on local issues only. The reason I'm running is because I'm a senior. We have a lot of seniors here. We can no longer financially burden seniors, those on low income, those who are having a hard time. We are the poorest county in Josephine County. We need to look to the state to help us. Now, I'm for limited taxation. I'm for homeowners to get property tax exemptions. I want our kids to stay here, but there's not enough job opportunities for them to stay here. Now, my opponent, I was reading his track record. It's too bad he's not here. He voted 58-1, child abuse investigations. He voted no. Mental health funding. Very important. He voted no. He's a city councilor. Look across the street. That's a disgrace. People say, well, you know, they need mental health. He voted no on mental health. He voted no on child services. These are all things that I would vote yes on. It's very important that Josephine County can appeal to investors to come here. Without that, we really don't have any future. So I'm running because Mr. Yunker would be a poor representative in Salem.
Thank you. Thank all three of you for your introductions. Now we're going to the 90-second questions and answers. I'll start with Richard, next Tracy, next Mark. So Richard, the first question, as a state representative, how will you help the state help Josephine County?
Good question. And I would like to thank this organization for putting this event on too. The state legislature is all sorts of ceremonies and complexities, but it's basically a shoving match for money. And Southern Oregon as a whole gets the dirty end of the stick repeatedly. There was an initiative to put up $200 million to fight wildfire and to prepare for and fire-wise properties. At the last minute, it was cut 3/4. And look at what's happening. The specific issues need to be addressed carefully, and it takes negotiation. Portland dominates the legislature, and we need to send people up to the legislature who can negotiate with the Portland Democrats. You send a Republican, they're in the minority. You send any of us, and we will be in the majority, and they cannot ignore us.
You finished?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, same question.
Yeah, I think Richard touched on most of the points, but really the role of a state representative is to basically bring home the bacon. And as Richard had already pointed out, that we are not getting our fair share. And part of that is because the representatives are just saying no because they're afraid of any strings that might be attached to the funding. Well, to me, that's the whole point of negotiation, is you negotiate what those strings are. And as Richard is always fond of telling me, if you're not at the table, it's because you're on the menu. And I think for far too long that Josephine County has been on the menu because we have not been willing to reach across the aisle and work with the people who control the power in the state. And so my job as a state senator is really to basically bring home the bacon and make sure that people like the city council have the resources they need from the state government, and that we can actually achieve some of these really serious issues that we're facing, like water infrastructure, housing infrastructure, economic development, which is why I was actually recruited to come here, was because we need to raise our economic base and diversify it from things like timber and mining. There's a lot more out there, but we have to be willing to embrace new ways of thinking if our community is going to thrive. Thank you.
Mark.
As your state representative, I'd like you to know I've lived in Josephine County 29 years. I've been involved in politics. I have a degree in business administration and sociology, so that covers the gamut. I agree with Tracy. As a state representative, we need someone that they will respect in Salem. Mr. Yunker will not be respected. He votes no on everything. Josephine County, again, is one of the poorest counties, and the state needs to help us. Everybody must pay their fair share in property taxes. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party believes everybody must pay its fair share. What is the fair share, I ask, for poverty level people? Their fair share is 0. What is the fair share for seniors? 0. So how are we going to get this funding? As a state representative, as an example, I would mandate, if the city of Grants Pass doesn't want to build an adequate homeless shelter, then the state must mandate they do so. And they must take the money out of non-social programs. We simply have to act. This is an intolerable situation.
Okay, thank you. This time I'll start with Tracy. And the question is, how will you work with the opposing parties for a more cohesive results that benefit Josephine County?
That's a great question. I would say the first thing that's important is they have to be willing to work with me. And based on the absence here in this forum, that raises the question as to how willing the other side is. Now, Mr. Robinson has said that he will absolutely say no to the power base in Portland, and that will never achieve our goals. So with a career in negotiation, contract negotiation, I am perfectly willing to figure out what's acceptable to all sides and find that zone of agreement in the middle. It's always about compromise, but you have to figure out what are your nice to haves and what are your must haves. And that's the sort of negotiation that takes place. So I'm perfectly willing to talk to anybody. So one of the things I've learned about being in this district, I've talked to a lot of people who are not going to vote for me, but I at least know what their issues are. And so that's the first step, is saying, what's your issue? And what's important to you? How can you fix it? What are your ideas for solving this? And then by gathering that information, you find compromise. You find solutions that work for everybody. You can't make all the people happy all the time, but as Thomas Paine said, the job of government is to make the most benefit for the most people. Thank you.
Mark. 90 seconds.
There's a saying, government that governs least governs best. If anybody can work with Republicans, it's me. And not if they're far right-wing extremists, but if they're reasonable non-MAGA heads, I can work with them. I can certainly work with non-affiliates because, again, my three main key points: limited taxation, respect for private property rights, and land use restrictions eased. Because we have a housing problem, and we must ease these land use restrictions in the rural areas, and Republicans feel they agree with that. So if anybody can work with them, I'm not a Republican on a national level by no means, but on a local level, there's some points. You know, the Democrats haven't won a presidential election in Josephine County since 1944 because it's all about local politics. We must understand what our local voters want, and this is the only way we can go to Salem and get the stuff that our voters want.
Okay. Richard, do you need the question repeated?
No.
Okay.
As I was saying, that I own timberland and have been in the reforestation industry, but I also spent 25 years as a real estate agent, and the last 10 years or so I was in commercial real estate. Negotiation and compromise is the key. There are a lot of moderate Republicans who really want to get some things done too. And so I look to my candidacy and serving in the legislature to be a link between the reasonable Democrats in basically the Willamette Valley and the rural Republicans. We have the common issues, and the three issues that come up over and over again. As soon as you get away from the presidential emotions, three issues: access to health care, money for their schools, and everybody's scared to death of wildfire. And we need constructive compromises and real solutions, and it's not happening because the people in Portland talk, but they bring the money home to Portland. And we are consistently frozen out because the Republicans, just like Tracy said, obstruct, say no, and they refuse to deal. Look at them, they're not here.
Okay. Start with you, Mark. How will you handle the learning curve of holding the state office you're seeking? Are you willing to attend special training offered by state associations?
I have 2 college degrees, sociology and business administration. A lot of that has to do with how you conduct yourself as a candidate and how you conduct yourself as an office holder. If there's any training that needs to be done, if there's any education that I obviously would need to learn, I'd be more than open to learning that. I come in with my own views. I'm a principled person. I'm not going to make deals that are going to compromise my values. if that's what has to happen in Salem, count me out. I'm not going to do that. I know what the citizens in Josephine County want. I'm one of them. And like I say, 29 years, I've worked in the community. I've been in politics, socially. So I have to learn what the job, the nitty-gritty of the job, but the basic values that I speak of tonight and the things that I speak of, I'm not going to change on that. I will mention one thing. This fire map will hurt this entire county, and I will work against it so people's insurance rates don't triple or not even have it. These are important things in the politics of Josephine County that must be addressed at Salem. Thank you.
Richard.
Well, I have a lot to learn, but I have been in now the legislature for a long time. I'm close friends with Senator Floyd Przansky. I've had long conversations with Representative Virgil Osborne. I've actually met and just been talking a lot with Pam Marsh. There are trainings needed, but I know how it works. And I've been up there, I've been to the committee hearings, and I'm always willing to listen. There's a lot to be learned, and the situation is fluid. But I'm not a neophyte when it comes to how things work at the legislature. And I'm also knowledgeable about a lot of the nitty-gritty issues about forestry and how things work that is discussed in committee meetings, and I've been to a lot of these committee meetings too. There is training, and I'm always willing to listen, but I've learned a lot more from the public than I ever have from talking heads in Salem.
Thank you. Tracy.
Yeah, so government's complex. There are always processes that need to be understood, and I think that's really what is at issue here. My personal experience in dealing with legislation goes back 30 years when I was involved with some family law legislation in California, where I actually helped draft the bill that is now the current law in California. I also, in the 9 years I was living in New Zealand, worked with the government down there because I was a science advisor to the national government down there. So I've been involved with drafting legislation. I understand the process. So the difference here will be what are the actual steps involved, who are the players, and so I understand the basic concepts but need to understand the nuances in Salem, and I don't see it as being an insurmountable obstacle. I mean, I'm a relatively smart guy. Thanks.
That's it. Give us reasons you want to be elected to a state office. Start with Richard.
In my capacity as a real estate agent, I read a lot of balance sheets, and I think there's a colossal amount of mismanagement and waste in the state legislature. As a Democrat, I'm willing to, and I support the idea of progressive thinking where the government should be involved, but there's one hell of a lot of money misspent in Salem, and nobody's bird-dogging it. We've had one Secretary of State of both parties do analysis and audits of state agencies, and it always comes back with the same 3 or 4 things. They get budgets that aren't followed. It's musical chairs of the management. When it comes time to deliver results, they don't. We've got serious problems. We've got a Cascadian subduction earthquake that is going to happen. When, where, how, I don't know. 100% probability. The flooding that's going on all over the world right now, right now is our fire season. Does anybody in this room think we couldn't have deluge rains in southern Oregon? We are not ready, and they're not listening. And if I go to Salem, they will hear me. I don't need a microphone. I've got a track record. You can come to my property and you can see timber management.
All right. Tracy.
Deep breath. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Richard. There's a lot of waste in Salem. When I look at the agencies, when I look at just trying to get on the ballot, with the Secretary of State in election rules, it's insane. And when I look at the redundancy in things like OLCC, or Oregon Health Administration, and also the Department of Agriculture regulating cannabis, why are there 3 agencies regulating one thing? So it's that sort of inefficiency that, as a business person, I would have cut right away from my company. And I think that that's the sort of thing, as Richard said, shine a bright light in those dark corners and figure out where the waste is. We don't need more taxes. We just need to use the taxes we have more efficiently. And part of that is going to be just really involving best practices in how we approach these things. I don't have the history that Richard has with the state government, but I'll tell you right now that it's not too difficult. You don't have to look too deep to find out where the waste is.
Okay. Thank you. Mark.
I've been called by one of the people in the education department, Nathan Siebel, interesting and provocative. I do that for a reason. I want to shake people up. I want people not to be apathetic. My dad told me, get involved, do things. Not everyone's going to agree with you, but you get them to think, raise their consciousness, let them think in areas they maybe didn't think before. And that includes Republicans and Democrats. Unfortunately, we have such a divisive atmosphere now. Republicans won't listen to Democrats, and Democrats won't listen to Republicans, and we're at this standstill. This is a very important election, and obviously, you know how I feel as a Democrat, nationally speaking. But locally, we need to have reasons for our kids to stay. We cannot continue to be a seniors retiree only, although that is what runs this county. Without seniors and retirees, we'd be like Garberville. No logging, no marijuana, no nothing. So we have to make our home a place that is respected by our kids, where they'll want to stay and not come back when they're 65. And if I go to Salem, I will guarantee you I will be interesting and provocative, and they'll know someone's there representing our town and our county.
Let me see, I'm starting now with, Tracy, you're the last one to start. Mark, how do you define your constituency and their main concerns?
My constituency is the people of Josephine County. My constituency cannot afford another tax or another fee when you combine that with all the inflation we've had, although it's coming down. My constituent is the senior on fixed income, who it's more important that he gets his food, maybe takes his sweetie out to dinner once a month, than pay another $30 a month for law enforcement that won't even show up. That's my constituency. My constituency is those that own land and want to make money on their land, whether it be illegal marijuana grow or whether it be rental housing. That's my constituency. People will do whatever they can do, hopefully legally, to earn their living in this county that's slightly above the poverty line. If we don't improve out of the poverty line, the entire values of will go down. We'll have more homeless, more people unhappy. I want people to be happy. The best way you can be happy is with economic opportunity, so you can fulfill the values that our parents taught us.
Richard.
That's an interesting question. My constituency is primarily rural, with a few small cities in there, and these cities are hurting badly. There's infrastructure demands and requirements from the state, but no money to actually do what they've just been ordered to do. My constituency generally lives up in the hills. They live on property. They're farming. They like privacy. They love their communities. That's the thing that I've always enjoyed, is to be part of the community out in Olalla. And I think that they feel left out, and they see needs that aren't being met. There's a lot of frustration with government. and a lot of frustration with times that are changing. They're a little more conventional, and some of the social changes scare people. I think that the computer and the technological advances leave rural people behind, and that's okay, because their love is not the latest whiz-bang computer, it's the trees and the livestock and their community. That is my constituency.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time for one more round? Okay. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you remember the question?
I remember the question, yes. Actually, my constituency is every single resident of Senate District 2. And as a representative, you have to represent all the people. Now, having said that, I think those people who will resonate more with my positions are those who are willing to look at new ways of solving old problems, because the old ways don't work anymore. I mean, this area used to be based on timber and mining. Well, those days where that is the fundamental economic base is gone. So I think my constituency are those people who are willing to look at new ways of creating value, of expressing their freedom, and of making sure that, as Sara Bristol pointed out, their kids want to stick around here, because there is very little hope for the youth in our community. And so what I would like to see is people who want to raise their level of education up so we get above the 73% high school graduation rate. So we have young people in our communities that can start new businesses, that can create new kinds of businesses. And I'm not trying to discount the seniors who really dominate the area, but we have to look towards our future. And our future isn't, as I think Mark said, Medicare and Social Security. It's building youth that want to stay here and build up the economic base for our future.
Good answer.
Well, that'll conclude our state level. Well, we've had some good interaction here tonight, haven't we? Really have.
I want to thank you for the questions. Those are good questions.
Thank you. Well, now we're going to transition to this big pile of questions, and that is the county government. So our two representatives will be Pat Fahey. Come on up, Pat. And Colene Martin. Wherever you like. So far, I think this has been one of the best forums I've been to, and I'm real happy with the outcome. I'm happy with the questions. I wish I had another day and a half, because we've got quite a stack of them here coming up. But the beautiful thing here is we only have two candidates present, two candidates that really care about this county. They're here. And so they get more time on the docket, as it should be. Okay. Let me start with Pat Fahey. And Pat, would you tell us in a minute and a half something about yourself, sell us on why you'd be good for this county?
Should I start all over again? Okay. So, hello, my name is Pat Fahey, and I'm a candidate for Josephine County Commissioner, Position 3. I was born and raised here in Grants Pass and have a family history that stretches back over 140 years. My business and civic involvement in Josephine County is one of almost 50 years of gradually increasing levels of responsibility and successes. I attended Grants Pass Public Schools And after graduating SOU with a degree in accounting, I married my fiancée Sue and entered the family business, Southern Oregon Sanitation, where I assumed various roles, culminating in general manager for 20 years. In addition to my position at SOS, I have several other outside business endeavors, including Pacifica Systems, our community bank, and municipal services, all successful and all providing family wage jobs and benefits. In my civic role, I've been involved in several projects that benefit the community, such as Three Rivers Community Hospital, Riverside West All Sports Park, Raptor Creek Farm, and the Josephine County Food Bank. I've been a T-ball coach, a Boy Scout leader, a chairman of the Josephine County Budget Committee, an elected board member for both Josephine Community Library District and the Rogue Community College Board. I've even testified in front of the U.S. House of Representatives on behalf of the City of Grants Pass. I've been a member of the Grants Pass Rotary Club for 50 years. I'm running because I think in Josephine County there's a huge lack of faith in our county commissioners, and it needs to change. I could go into a list of things I saw, which my decision basically harkens back to the gift of the All Sports Park. My wife and I chatted about it for some time, and she said, "You got to do it. You're going to be upset if you don't. We need a change. Now's the time to change." Not as good as yours, I'm sure.
Colene, tell us something about yourself.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight, and thank you for hosting us. Thank you to Larry for being our moderator. I'm excited to be here. I am currently a real estate agent at John L. Scott. I've been there for the last 6 years. My prior work experience was, most recently, I was a chief operating officer for the Oregon State Chamber of Commerce. I left there just this past December. Prior to that, I was the Grants Pass and Josephine County executive director here in Grants Pass. And then before that, my husband and I had a small business here in Grants Pass. We had the Photo Den. Some of you remember that, photo electronics business downtown on 7th and I Street. We loved our business. We had a lot of fun. Those were the best years of our careers, I think. That was super great. My educational background is I have an associate's degree. I went back to school in my late 40s and went to school. So I got my associate's degree here at Rogue Community College. I've attended various leadership programs, multiple leadership programs. I went to the U.S. Institute for Management institution. That's a really pretty intense program. My government experience includes Government Affairs Committee for the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber, the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. While running our family business, I spent years actively involved in local boards and service organization. My first board and near and dear to my heart is the YMCA. Is that a timer?
Yep.
Am I done?
You're done.
Okay.
Put a fork in.
making sure.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you 90-second questions. 90 seconds goes fast, but if you see that yellow light, just hit the gas, don't hit the brake. Use it all up. I'll start with Pat, and after that first question is answered by both of you, I'll shift to Colene, back and forth, back and forth. Pat, what do you feel is the most important issue we specifically face as a county? And how do you plan to tackle it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. In my opinion, the biggest challenge facing Josephine County is a lack of faith in our current county commissioners, resulting from unprecedented personnel departures, the continual administrative turmoil, attempting policies that clearly attempt to bypass state law, ill-advised real estate transactions, attempt to defund the library district, and defunding the OSU Extension Service, and then don't even get me started on cronyism. Thank you.
All right. Colene, what's your answers?
Well, I can just make this 10 seconds and just ditto everything Pat just said. and that makes it pretty simple. But one of the things that I want to bring is transparency, and I think that's what this community is lacking. There's no trust, there's no transparency. There's no, I want to help the employees of Josephine County. I want to create a culture there that where the employees are happy to work. I'm concerned. I have a lot of concerns about that. So those are the reasons that I'm running for county commissioner. I think I have a lot to give. From my background, I have the abilities to bring back we want this community to be a community that we're proud to live in. We want to bring our families, our visitors, and be really happy and quit reading all of the negative things in our community. I'm going to go short because I went too long.
That's good. This time I'll start with Colene. Colene, the animal shelter is in shambles. No funds are available. The county charter and state law says we must support this shelter. What would you propose as solutions?
That's a great question. I did support the animal shelter most recently, and I was extremely disappointed that didn't pass for our community. More than for the humans, but for of course the pets. What I would propose is we're going to have to think out of the box, because I don't know if we're going to get the taxpayers to pay for that. This community is pretty much no new taxes. So we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to think of a new way to do that. I know that the Humane Society has their own type of a gift store or something like that. So the Gospel Rescue Mission has their own gift store. I've been thinking about this a lot. What program could we create to make some funding for that? I know it wouldn't bring a lot of money, but at least it would be some. I would love to see us come back with another proposal. I think it needs to be smaller. I think that was a lot of money. It was a big bite. Maybe we need to do it in increments, a little bit smaller, but I'd like to see it come back.
Okay. How about you, Pat?
Much like Colene, I was a little surprised at the amount of the bond that they had listed, and the numbers didn't add up to me, and it's hard to imagine our taxpayers wanting to pay as much for the humane side as they do for all of the county government, and it almost was that. I think that we can divert some money within the current budget. You may or may not know that the IT department got an extra $850,000 that I am not sure they know what they're going to do with at this point in time. I think I would divert some of that to meet the most immediate needs, and just like Colene said, if we had to come back with a levy as opposed to a bond for a much lower amount, I think that would probably help the situation a lot. There's not a really good answer, because you ask the last group of people here, who's their constituents? Well, who's the dogs and cats constituents? And that's the hard part about it. But like you said, according to state law and our own charter, we're supposed to support that. And I think the current commissioners probably left that out of their calculus for the budget.
Okay. Well, you're there, Pat. Answer this one. Do you believe a competent, experienced county manager with protected administrative power is important?
Why, yes, I do. I was an advocate for the charter, and I was disheartened a little bit about what happened, and I think the loss of that initiative was probably due to a lot of really bad information. I would not be opposed to seeing that come back in a different form, maybe addressing some of the needs. Our current charter has many problems that are not enforceable. I believe in a manager. I work with counties, Jackson County in particular, that you see what a good, well-run county can be. Usually there's a manager protecting the citizens from the worst ideas the county commissioners have. So I'm a believer in a manager.
Colene?
Well, he's looking at me because he knows I opposed it. I did oppose it. I do think there's a place for it. I'm not opposed to that model at all. I think there's some continuity to it that we need, and we're lacking with electing commissioners every 4 years. You lose all of that because people get upset with commissioners for whatever reasons, and so we do lose that. I would support it in some sort of a fashion. I just don't know what that looks like yet, and I would have to see it before I could say 100% yes. I do feel like we're on a tight budget, and that was mostly why I didn't support it, is because I did see the budget. I was looking at our county budget throughout this whole last session, and to add the cost of an employee, I know what that cost. I've had employees. I know you might think you pay them $125,000, but ultimately that's going to cost you another $75,000. So we just need to see a plan.
Okay.
She's still my favorite even after that.
Colene, I forgot my name. Are you first or are you first?
No, I think this one's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you support the recent interdepartmental changes, such as combining IT and emergency management, and combining the finance and HR director departments?
No, I do not support those. I was in shock and awe, and actually during the budget committee meetings, I actually got up and asked the commissioners about the HR position, because JJ had already left and Michelle had been in that position for some time. And I wondered if it was an oversight of the budget committee to budget for her to be a manager. And so at that point I knew something was amiss, and I was actually told that was, when I got up to speak about it, I was told that was a commissioner's decision, not me to be bringing that up. So no, I did not think that was a good idea. As for the IT and emergency management, no, I do not agree with those being put together as well. We unfortunately lost a great emergency manager, and I would love to see us rebuild that. It is important, as the candidates before said, we have tragedies that are going to happen in this community. We have wildfires, we have events that are going to happen, and we have to be prepared. And we're not going to do that with just an IT person. And then don't even get me started on the $850,000 that was transferred to IT, because there's a plan. We just don't know what it is yet, because I think that everything has a plan that is being put forth in front of us from these commissioners, but it's just not revealed yet.
Okay. Pat Fahey.
Like Colene, I do not approve of the recent changes for a couple of reasons. Some maybe not so obvious. Pardon me. Some maybe not so obvious. There we go. Some maybe not so obvious. Our IT director is basically moonlighting. He has other jobs with State Senator Art Robinson, and also with another state senator. And when this legislature is in session, he probably won't be here, and that's about the time we have floods. From a personal point of view, it's not unusual for this time of year, review with all the providers, emergency services providers, talk about the emergency plan for whatever. And we do that. And so happens the garbage company is one of the providers, because they want to know, if you have a flood, how do you get rid of all the rotten meat? I mean, it's just things like that. And they usually have a meeting of all the people involved about now. I've heard nothing. I think it's probably a bad choice. And I think that probably the HR and the finance is probably a really bad choice. I know somebody who works there that it's just a toxic environment there now. They're just wondering what the next shoe is going to fall. So I'm not a fan of those changes. I'd like to go back to the way it was, where we had dedicated managers that knew what they were doing, and we hired qualified people. I don't think that's what we have now.
Thank you. This one I'll start with Colene. The county has an $11 million shortfall of funding. How will you address this?
We are going to have to be creative. We're going to have to make cutbacks, and the commissioners are actually, I will give them that much credit. They do see that we are going to have a shortfall. They are trying to readjust budgets. They're not doing it in the same manner or fashion that I think that they should be done, but that's why people run for commissioners, because they see what the current commissioners are doing, and they think they could do a better job, and I think I can do a better job with that. We're going to have to reallocate funds. We're going to have to adjust our staffing potentially a little bit, but I'm not going to compromise our law enforcement with that. I feel like that I have an unwavering commitment to law enforcement and the jail, because that is incredibly important to this community. So we're going to have to be really frugal with our budgets. We're going to have to take a bigger look at it and understand where those shortfalls are coming and how we can increase that. I have some great ideas on economic development that maybe I'll get to share with you at the next question.
Pat.
I think the first question is, how do you prioritize? I'm with Colene that law enforcement is probably first and foremost. I've worked with Colene on several different law enforcement efforts, from SOS to the current district. That should come first, but that doesn't mean you can get rid of all the other departments, because you need to have assessors, you need to have finance, you need to have HR. So we will have to be a little smarter in how we do things. The only way you can really get out of that long-term is grow out of it. That means we need to increase assessed valuation of the counties, and the only way you do that is build more houses, bring in more businesses, create more payrolls. I've often said that a lot of our problems revolve around, probably the best answer to it is increase our housing. And that means that you build houses where have a huge shortfall in their inventory. It'll require us to work with the city, the county, the state to look at the rules that we have to live by. Can we change some rules? Do we have to talk to our legislators to help us? But the only real long-term way you're going to get around it is just increasing the tax base in the county. You can nickel and dime and lower the cost of some things, but ultimately you're going to have to increase the tax base in the county.
All right, I think, Pat, it's your turn to start. Okay. What's your position on returning official required listings and legal postings to the Daily Courier?
Well, I think that the removal of the Daily Courier was just a retribution. So I would want to have it back. That's the mostly widely read periodical in the county. You're going to get to the broadest broadcast there. It was not only dumb, but a little bit retroactive. They're getting back at the editorial board of the Courier. So I think it was a poor move, and I think it reflects poorly in the county. So, bad move.
Colene?
I agree, 100%. I think that I do read, and I have for years, got the Illinois Valley newspaper. I would support probably doing both, because they have their own little community out there with over 3,000 residents, and I don't think they should be overlooked, but I would definitely support bringing that back.
Okay. What are the main sources of county funding, and how would you work to increase those funding streams?
Is that me?
Yes.
So the largest are grants. It's probably a little bit of a misconception that people think it's our tax dollars. It's really grants that are coming in. That's our largest funding. How we are going to work with those grants is work with our legislatures, because that's where those grants dollars are coming from. We need to have a good relationship. The commissioners need to have a good working relationships with the state. They have to work to get together to get funds back to us, both with the federal and the state, but usually and even federal dollars are coming through the state. So we need to have that great relationship with them. We need to be advocating for them. I've worked with that when I was at the state chamber. I was working with policymakers. I was working with the legislatures. I've always had a great closed relationship with our legislatures, especially when I was at the chamber here in Grants Pass. We just have to keep those relationships open.
Pat.
Well, I'd like to harken back to the years when timber was our biggest source of county revenue. I'd like to see that come back, but I think those are long gone. You'll never get the sorts of revenue we used to have. So our biggest source of revenue right now is, I think it's SRS, Secure Rules funding from the federal government. And much like Colene said, and then property taxes, I think we're in, the assessed valuation of the county is about $7 billion. We get about, let's see, 57 cents a thousand. My math is right, $4 or $5 million from it. Yeah, so the budget's 149 million. So you can figure that most of it comes from somewhere else. Most of it's passed through. So we need to, until we find and create an industrial base here, we need to work really hard at keeping the people who provide the grants in play. A lot of people think the federal government has a free pass on not timberland. You know, we have timberland in our county. It's 70% of their county's square footage. But they pay payments in lieu of taxes, the PELT money. So there is some money coming in for the federal government. But we need to create industrial base here, and we can talk about that.
Okay. Pat, how would you select committees and staff then?
Well, it depends what they are. Obviously, the committees that have any kind of technical resonance, you want to have somebody that knows what they're talking about. If you're going to talk about some sort of environmental committee, you want to have people that know what they're talking about. If it's a general community committee, then you probably want to make sure that the community is represented. Not just one political party, not just one gender, not just one area, but all the county, all the citizens. And I think that's what we're lacking now. A lot of the committees are populated with the friends of the commissioners. And actually, I think we're better served if sometimes you get some people that aren't so friendly at the commissioners. And yeah, if I was a county commissioner, you'd probably see that occasionally. Somebody that, wow, he picked him or he picked her. I'd like to get something, because if we all agree on stuff, we're probably missing something. So I think I'd reach out and try and get some opposition. There's a real need for loyal opposition, and I think that we need to talk about it.
Colene.
Yeah. So I like the process should be, of course, you apply with an application. I'd like us to see interviews happen with the commissioners. Most recently, they appointed the new commissioner, that process went expedient. They decided it, I think on a Tuesday or Wednesday, that position was filled within a week. I think it needs to be a little longer process for people to be able to apply. So applying, interviews, I think that we need to, through those interviews, try to figure out how much self-interest a person might have in whatever that position might be. And if that is the reason that they're there, then we need to look at that. We need to be able to have people that are qualified, there's no question. But I think that if it's for personal gain,
yeah,
we don't want that.
Start with Pat. What is your position on creating a county fire district for the residents in the unincorporated areas outside of Grants Pass? How does your position differ from the one being proposed by the existing commissioners?
I've been in favor of a fire district in the unincorporated parts of Josephine County for a long time. Probably worked on most of the ones that have been out there. I helped on the last one. I think it's the right thing to do. It's a common threat. If your neighbor's house is on fire, your next house is going to be your house on fire. So let's get the tools that we need to get the job done right. As far as the latest iteration, I've been watching the county commissioners kind of struggle a little bit about the ODF issue, which I thought was a bad start, and it ended up being a bad start. The idea of proposing a fire district without a tax base and let the citizens create a tax base, I think is a bad idea. I think the tax base ought to be decided with the fire district itself. I know there's some history that with these commissions that go back to rural metro and fire districts that isn't very pleasant. I think you just need to put that aside and say, what's the right thing to do for the citizens of Josephine County?
Colene.
I agree with most of what Pat just said. I am meeting actually next week with Rural Metro, the chief and some firefighters, just to kind of get their side of it. Illinois Valley has, in my opinion, one of the most amazing fire departments in this area. Those those firemen out there work really, really hard, and they're saving lives all the time out there. A fire district, I know that's not your question, but and I was married to a fireman. My husband was a fireman from 1976 to 1988, so I'm familiar with fires. He went on some of the most horrific fires that Josephine County has ever seen. That all said, we need a fire district. I'm not 100% clear where these commissioners are going with their proposals, so I can't have an opinion yet because I don't think, again, that it's all been exposed. But to go after $0 for it, there's just something a little different there, a little fishy maybe, I don't know.
This will start with Colene, what are the major future county projects you would champion?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I have some. First and foremost, what's the number one problem we have in our county that you hear about every day? It's housing. I know I'm not going to talk about homeless, but it's housing. And Josephine County doesn't have a plan. We don't have a strategy for housing. We've never created it. The governor, whether we agree with it or not, said that we need to create 36,000 homes in a year. Nobody in Josephine County has said, okay, we did this many last year, we did this many the year before, at least we have a baseline. We do have a baseline out there. How do we increase that? And how do we reduce the regulations to increase that? Because that's what's prohibiting our growth, is the multiple regulations. And people take that out on the county staff, the building department, the planning department. Those regulations come from the state, and they are only doing their jobs. So a housing strategy, along with the City of Grants Pass and our community partners, we need to work on an economic development strategy. I think that's critical, and that is another way we can get revenue. Going hand in hand with the economic development strategy, supporting our fairgrounds and our airports, those are going to be really big economic drivers. Once the Flying Lark's dust settles, they have this beautiful plan for the fairgrounds, and I think we could create something really amazing out there. Actually, I don't think we can. I think Tamara already has that in play.
Going along, Colene, as the starting question.
Well,
With economic development. Pat?
I got the last question.
Oh,
I
he didn't.
Yeah, I haven't done it.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So,
Go ahead.
So going along a little bit with Colene is housing is a big part. We have manufacturers now that are stymied for the delay they get from the housing department, building and planning. How many here, I'm going to ask the audience, how many here has built a house in Josephine County? Okay. I built a house, now granted it was during COVID. It was 8 months to get a minor lot line adjustment. In that 8-month period of time, the price of a sheet of plywood went from $25 a sheet to $50 a sheet. Why did it take that long? There wasn't a lot of people in front of me. It's just the bureaucracy we have at our housing department. We built a big shop about 5 years ago on Redwood Avenue. If you drive in from Cave Junction and you look at the roof of that shop, you'll see 3 dormers on it, totally non-functional. They're just there for artistic value. If you turn around and come back from, you're heading towards Cave Junction, you look at the same roof and there's no dormers in that roof. City Grants Pass, Josephine County, follows the Portland Architectural Standard. Stupid rules. We need to get rid of the stupid rules. We need to make it so that there's a way for people to challenge those and make a difference. Say, why do I have to do this? I could have challenged the, ask for relief 90 days. If you're building a building, how much does that 90 days cost you? It's a big deal. I'm looking at the mayor now and I'm kind of saying, we'll be talking about this later. No, it's a big deal. It's much bigger than you think. Housing can be one of our saviors.
Okay, I want to go back to Colene. How, with utilizing economic development solutions, bring outside money into this county?
Well, one thing the commissioners did is they took away the funding to So Ready. I was just at a meeting last week with So Ready, and and it wasn't that much money, in my opinion. I originally thought it was quite a bit of money, but it was $33,000. The support that we get from So Ready is pretty incredible. Yes, Jackson County gets more, and everybody feels like we're kind of the stepchild to Jackson County, and in a lot of ways we are, but we are more unique than Jackson County, I think. So bringing back So Ready with their good graces, I think, is really, really important. And as I mentioned earlier, the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds can be an incredible economic driver. Our airports, we have 2 great airports. With the expansion of the airport, I think when they get that, if that continues to happen, which I really hope that it does. But Illinois Valley, again, has an amazing airport out there, too, and incredible. Actually, it has more airspace available than the one here that we have in Merlin to teach from. So I think that those 2 factors are big economic drivers in our community.
Pat, what's your answer to that?
Well, I agree with Colene about So Ready. I served in that board for many years. And if you want to get any kind of traded sector jobs, you really need to be able to put out the open for business sign. And right now in Josephine County, if you listen to our current county commissioners, I've heard one say many times in a public meeting, I don't know why anybody would open a business in Oregon. Now that doesn't help. You need to actually go out and seek out businesses. For business to succeed here, you need to have like 2 or 3 things. You need to have industrial land that you can build on. You need to have the infrastructure in place. And you need to have a trained workforce. I've worked at RCC a long time in the career training to try and get at least the workforce part done, and it helps. I was at a small business development center meeting today, and they talked about the 4 major industries in Josephine County are medical, food, prep, and light manufacturing is after that. There's a lot of manufacturers we just don't acknowledge here. The other thing we need to acknowledge is that there are 6,000 of our fellow residents here in Josephine County that actually are employed in Jackson County. So you have to kind of remember that comes across. But those are 6,000 jobs that we're actually giving I don't want to see somebody else because we're in the same area. But we could probably have those people work here. We need to put out the welcome sign. If you look at what we spent our economic development money on in the last several years, the bulk of it went to improving the courthouse. I'm not sure, but I don't think that helps a lot. So.
Okay. Well, I think that's about a wrap. And I don't know about you, this has been the best forum I've been to in a long time.
Thank you, guys.
So why don't you mingle around a few minutes, talk to some of these reps, neighbor with them. You might have some personal questions. This has been great. Thank you very much for coming.